Just checking we're live. Looks like we're good. Welcome everybody. This is Uncensored Repairs. Today we're going to be replacing the Digitizer on an Amazon Kindle 8 12th generation. As you can see, it is pretty smashed up. So we're going to attempt a Digitizer repair. This is the I don't think I've done one of these ones before. I've done some of the earlier models, so we're going to attempt to replace the digitizer on this, and yeah, we'll see how we go. Okay, I'm going to transfer you over to the desk camera. Okay, so we have the Kindle. We'll obviously need to remove it from the case, put it to the side. And here we have the new digitizer. It doesn't look like there's any adhesive on it or anything like that. Looks like there's some plastic coating on the rear of it. Maybe we need to remove that. There might not be any on there actually. It might be on the other side only. Oh, maybe, yeah, there is. Yeah, so we'll need to remove that, and we'll leave it on for now while we do some tests on it. But yeah, that's the replacement. Looks like it's just this ribbon cable that's got to go onto the actual motherboard. And yeah, so we'll see how we go with it. So the first thing is we need to get this turned off, and then we need to get inside it. So let's turn this off and shut it down, and then we need to pop the back off of this. So these usually just clip on. So I'm just gonna go around with the metal spudger and just gently lever the back away from the device. I'm going to be careful near the top because that's where the motherboard is. I don't really want to damage that. And there we go. It is popped off. Now we're going to disconnect the battery. The battery connector just lifts off the board. You can literally pop it off like that, and that's it. I think for this repair I might remove the motherboard. Let me just have a look, see if... Yeah, I think I'm going to remove the motherboard just so we don't damage it with the heat, because we're going to need some heat to get this digitizer off the chassis, and we're going to need to unscrew the LCD as well because we don't really want to damage that. So yeah, so we're just going to unplug these ribbon cables and various things like that. Wi-Fi cable. Get this out the way. Disconnect the camera. Okay, and before we remove the motherboard, there's a couple of things that we need to do first, and one of those is the connectors for the speakers, or the connections, sorry, on the motherboard need removing as well. So we're going to get those desoldered as well. So I'm just going to connect my solder station up. And suppose I'll transfer you over to the microscope. All right. Let's see if it's working. Doesn't look like it's working. It doesn't look like the microscope wants to work at the moment. Once more. There we go. Seems to be working now. Okay, so the first thing we need to remove is the these little connections here. What I like to do is just mark on the board where positive is, so I'm going to put a little dot next to where positive is, and the same for the other one as well. It does actually mark on there, it does actually show you on there where positive is, but I always put a dot. Okay. You only really need to lightly heat this up. There's one. There's two. And we'll do the other one as well. There's one. And there's the other one. So that's the speaker connections now disconnected from the motherboard. Now we can go back to the desk. Oh, I didn't actually show the microscope. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I've desoldered these here and these here as well. So now we can go ahead and unscrew the motherboard. So I need a small posi drive. If I can find where I've put it. Oh, on it. Okay, there's some screws at the top, it seems. Then there's one here at the bottom. And before we do that, actually, let's remove the connector for the digitizer from the top of the motherboard. It's got a little bit of heat-proof coating on it. I'm just going to stick that to the battery just to keep it safe. Okay. This looks like it's stuck to the motherboard underneath. Just got to try and get underneath it without damaging the board or getting these caps off in any way. We don't want to do that. There we go, just lightly get it in there, and just like that it comes off. So that is ready to be removed. It looks like on the back of that there's earthing tape, so we must make sure that the new digitizer is earthed to the motherboard as well. It's not earthing tape as such, it's just a common ground. Okay, so now we can remove these screws. There's some at the top here. Just put them to the side. They're all the same size on these. It doesn't really matter where you put them. It's not like on an iPad where you have to place them where you put them. Okay, let's just double check all the way around here now, make sure we've removed all the screws. Looks good to me. Now we need to get this motherboard off the chassis. There are actually little clips all the way around, which doesn't make the situation easy. Okay, there we go. We're a bit further along now. And there we go. The motherboard is now removed. So I'm just going to put this to the side. And now we can make a move on replacing this digitizer. So this digitizer threads through a hole at the top of the device here where the chassis is, and it looks like we can't remove the LCD from this side like some of the older Kindles. So it's literally a front off job, and might as well remove that camera as well to prevent damage. There we go. Yeah, front off job, and try not to damage the LCD in the process. I'm really hoping they haven't stuck the LCD to the digitizer. I don't think they do on these, but I really don't want that. Really don't want that. Let's just hope that's not the case. Alright, okay. So we'll just make sure these are flat and out the way so we don't damage them when we remove the digitizer. I'm going to leave the battery in place, that's alright. We could remove it, but I don't think we really need to. Okay. Right, I'm going to put something down on the desk to prevent damage to the rubber on the desk. These are generally good for stopping the heat going through to the desk, so I'm just going to use this. And I'm probably going to use my bigger heat gun for this, just to get some quick heat around the edges here. Then I'm going to go around with a card, with just a plastic card, just to separate it from the chassis without doing too much damage. I might even use a sucker as well, just to get it off. Might not be able to use it on these areas where the cracks are, because it'll take in the air around the sides, but maybe on this side it might be okay. So I'm going to grab the heat gun. There we go. So we're just going to heat it up very gradually all the way around. These do kick out some quick heat, so we don't really want to absolutely cane it with heat. One of the reasons why we don't want to heat it up too much is because these chassis are made of plastic. They're not like iPads where they're made of aluminium, so there is a risk here that we can melt the plastic, and that's something we don't want, obviously. So let's just go around the edge. Okay, that's heated up somewhat. So let's get this on the side with the least cracks and see if we can get part of the digitizer off. Looks like these are stuck on good and proper, and the cracks are not helping the situation either. Okay, let's try and get into here with a metal spudger, lightly get behind it. Okay, then get a plastic card in there. Let's see if we can get that off. We don't want to go in too deep because obviously the LCD is behind there. It looks good so far. It doesn't look like it's sticking to the LCD underneath here when I'm lifting it, so it's not actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's all good. Just got to try and get this off. I do recommend you use eye protection for this, because these little shards of glass can get in your eye and can cause issues, so I'm going to get some myself right now. And it's also getting a little cooler, so I'm going to heat it up a little bit more. What I might do as well is just tape this down the back, because I don't want this popping out the side while I'm heating up, because the last thing I want is to heat up the Wi-Fi cable and for that to fail. So just a bit of tape on the back there. I'm using sellotape, but you can use heat-proof tape as well. I just haven't got that to hand right now. We'll stick that down. There we go. Okay, let's carry on heating it up. There we go, stop there. Again, we don't use too much heat because it is plastic. Let's get back behind here and see if we can't work our way a bit across a bit quicker. Just like that. There we go. It's coming off nicely now. And we'll carry on going down the other way. Like so. All right. There is the cable that goes through the chassis. I'm just going to go past that. Okay, we're just going to put a bit more heat onto this side here. And we're going to carry on round. Yeah, that's hot. Almost off. And there we go. That is one digitizer removed from a Kindle. Okay, I'm just going to double check on this to see if there's anything that we need to transfer over to the new one. There is a couple of magnets here at the top. I might just insert those back into the little grooves where they are here. I assume that's for the case, so when you open and close the case, it unlocks and locks the screen. So yeah, I'm going to place those into the grooves of the chassis. There's one. There's the other. We're just trying not to touch the LCD. That's the last thing we want, because they're very difficult to get clean. Okay, so the magnets are in there. Just one more check over this to see if there's anything else we need to transfer across. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Yeah, well, that came off nicely. There is a bit of adhesive here that's still on here. I'm just gonna try and get that off without touching the LCD using the metal spudger. I'm just going to try and roll it off. Get in there. There we go, that is off. Any more anywhere else? There's a little bit here at the bottom. There we go, that looks good to me. Now the desk has got lots of tiny bits of glass on it, so I'm just going to give it a good going over with the desk hoover, or the handheld hoover, or whatever you want to call it, because that's the last thing you're going to want in your hands while you're working. I just got stabbed by a small piece. Okay, also we don't need this heat gun anymore, so I can move that back out the way. And let's put that to the side. These screws, the last thing we want is sucking those up. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we have a Kindle here that is now ready for a new digitizer. There's a bit of dust on the LCD that can brush off using a paintbrush. One of the things that we need to do before we put the new digitizer on is lay down some more adhesive, because this Kindle had adhesive on it. What I am going to do with this Kindle is put some adhesive down. I'm just going to cut some pieces and put it round, but I'm also going to use some E8000 rubber glue as well, or electronics glue, whatever you want to call it, just to make sure this digitizer is nice and firmly in place. So let's get that done now. I'm just going to get some adhesive, and we'll get started with that. Do have some pre-cut mini strips of the same sort of adhesive. I'm going to use those first. If I need any more, I'm going to cut some more. But so far we've got these little mini strips that we can use. Might be enough here actually. So I'm just going to peel off the white off the back. This is actually like slight sponge adhesive, and they are 3M ones as well. So you know it's decent stuff, you know. There's no point in using crap stuff to stick the to stick things together. Okay, so we're going to want to go from this corner. We don't want to cover the camera up, so I'm just going to cut it about there. That. I'm going to go as far as to the flat side we can go. Actually, might need a little bit more off that. So as far as to the edge as we can go to there. Don't want to waste any of these little pieces, so I'm going to put this right here next to the camera. And we've got another little piece there as well. Okay, next pieces we're going to use from there to here. Let's just double check that goes there perfectly. That'll do it. Okay, so let's get these off. There we go. Then this side. This is where the ribbon cable comes through for the digitizer, so we don't want to go over that. We want to stop just before it. So we're going to want to go just to about there. There we go, perfect. And then we have a smaller piece here that we can use for this side. There we go. Okay, now onto the longer side. Piece will go nicely there. It does appear that there is a bit more adhesive that needs removing off this top corner here, so let's just get that off. We don't want it to be too high when we put the digitizer on. It all has to be perfectly level. Okay, that is now off. Yep. Okay. And we've just got a piece here and then a thin piece across the bottom. This bottom piece is thinner because that's where the main ribbon section is for the digitizer, so we don't really want it to go too thick down there. So let's get this last piece here done, and then we can cut some of this halfway down, and then we can get a nice piece across the bottom. Okay. All right, this one's already got a bit of a cut in it, so I'm going to cut this one, and we're just going to use the we're going to use obviously the side that isn't cut, the longer side. Okay. Make sure it goes right to the edge. We don't want it overlapping where it's not supposed to go. Right into that corner. Okay, so there's just a little bit on the edge here. I'm going to use this little edge piece just to finish that off. We need it to be about there. Like that. Okay. So all those pieces are in place. I might just put a tiny little bit more on this corner here, just a small square, and maybe a bit there. The others are small enough to be able to take the E8000 glue for those gaps. But we just need to make sure we do a proper job for the customer. The last thing you want is this thing coming off. So a little bit into there, right into the corner. That's gone nicely. And a tiny bit here using this. That'll do it. Okay, so now we're going to go around all the way around the edges with the metal spudger, just pressing it all into place to make sure it's all set to the chassis. Like so. Also helps with removing the blue coating when you do really want to finally set the screen to the digitizer to the chassis. Okay, now while this is here, what I'm thinking is we want to test this digitizer. It's important that it's tested, so we can now fit the motherboard back into the device because we don't need to heat this up anymore, and yeah, so while we're doing that, what we can do is we can remove the front coating of the digitizer, and then we can use that coating to go over the top of this LCD to protect it from fingerprints and things while we tip it over and work on the motherboard area. So what I'll do is I'll remove the coating from this, and we'll lightly tip this around. Before I actually put the coating from the digitizer onto the LCD, I'm just going to give the LCD a bit of a brush just to get the few specks of dust off it, because it's important that there's nothing on it and it's in good condition. There we go, looking fantastic. Okay, so a bit more dust. Okay, right, taking this off here. and we're putting it over the top of here. Doesn't matter if it's how bad it looks or whatever, which as long as it's covering the LCD and everything like that, we're all good. So now we can turn this back over and fit the motherboard, and then we can lightly test the digitizer before it actually goes on and is set to the device. So yeah, so we need to get the motherboard, we need to solder these connections back in place. We can remove this tape for the Wi-Fi connector or the Wi-Fi cable, and we can get this motherboard set back. One of the most difficult connectors for the motherboard to fit is the LCD connector, so it's easier to put it in when the motherboard is loose, or at least line it up where it needs to go. Okay, you can generally see where the LCD connector sits, where it's supposed to sit, because you got a line, and when you put the flat back down, the line will be perfectly lined up with the flat. Okay, next thing we need to do is connect back up the cameras. Also, this bottom edge here. There we go. That would help the situation. Yeah, so we need the cameras connecting back up. I mean, as you can see, I'm touching the LCD now because it doesn't matter. Obviously, that's where the ribbon cable comes through for the digitizer, and yeah, I'm going to connect the cameras back up while we're at it, just to do. Let's go. Okay, so that one. Was here, wasn't it? Yep. Yep, so that's the back camera. It fits in there like that. And that's the front camera. It actually says front and back on the actual camera, and yeah, so that fills that gap now, so that's in nicely. Next thing is the Wi-Fi connector. It's literally grooves where it goes through. It's self-explanatory exactly where it goes. There's little metal areas as well where it fits into. Just like that. Okay. And what else have we got? We've got the speaker connections, so let's get those ready to be fitted. Obviously we know where the positive is and the negative is, as we marked that earlier. I'm just going to get those ready in place. Okay, so we'll go over to the microscope and we'll get those done. These have stuck together, so I'm just going to separate them like that. All right. There's the negative. Need to hold that down. Positive. And the same with the other one. Sorry, I don't think you saw the other one, did you? There's the positive. And there's the negative. No need to use any new solder or anything like that. There's already plenty on there, and it's generally low melt on those. All right, okay, so now we can position the where these go in the little grooves, just lightly with a flathead screwdriver. You don't want to pierce the coating of the cables. Same with this one here. There we go, nicely in the grooves. Brilliant. Next thing, we can go back over to the desk. Get rid of this adhesive. It's rubbish. Okay, so now is about the time that we can test out the new Digitizer. So we can loosely pop this through. Actually, we can't loosely put that through because we've put the protection on for the LCD. So what we can do is just get that lifted up right at the end here. Make a little cut. Just so we can pop that cable through. All right. So we've got protection on the back, protection on the LCD. Let's get this pushed through here. All right. Then just lightly connect it on the motherboard. I know it needs to be earthed, but it doesn't matter. We can test it for now. Or grounded, sorry. And also, while we're doing this, we might as well put some of the some of the ground screws back into the motherboard just to make sure it's pushed down. I'm not going to push hard on these right now because they are literally resting on the digitizer behind it, and we don't want to crack that. All right, so the only thing that's stopping us from powering this on now is the battery connector. So let's just make sure this is positioned nicely into where it should go. Very lightly hold it in place, pop the battery connector on, and now we hope for the best and we get this turned on. So the power switch, if I remember, is on the top left. It's just literally a PCB button that we press right now. We've got a good start. Amazon is starting up. So now we will see if the digitizer is working. Fingers crossed the digitizer works. Please work. And will it work? Will it work? Swipe the dashboard. Not now. So the digitizer appears to be working. Let's have a look, see if the keyboard works. Yes. So digitizer's working, keyboard's working. All good. Tests have passed. So now we can get to work on setting the chassis properly. And let's get this turned off before we do any of that. Power buttons top left. Switch off. And now we're shutting down. Okay, so that's brilliant. We know that's going to work. So now we need to remove the battery connector again, because we don't actually do any work on this while the battery's connected. So let's get that removed, just like so, and now it's safe to work on. Let's now remove the digitizer connector and get this digitizer out the way and angled properly out the way. And I'm just going to check my phone. I've just had a message. Yes, that's right, Stephen. Yeah, I'll get that ordered in. It'll be a couple of days. Okay, So now we're at this stage. We can now remove the protection that we removed off the Digitizer to protect the LCD, and as you can see, it's in fantastic condition. So we might as well carefully put that back on the Digitizer. There we go. Now we can remove the adhesive around the edges. For this, I like to use a Stanley knife or just a sharp knife, because this is quite strong stuff, especially on the blue side, so you don't really want to start getting your fingernails in there trying to remove it, because it won't come off properly. Okay, also if you do get a corner of this up, it's best to hold it down with a screwdriver just to peel it up nicely. There we go. Very sticky stuff. As you can see, it's so sticky, it pulled up on the one side. There we go. I'm using the tweezers as well, it's just easier to get it off without using your fingers, because the last thing you want is to use well, to get any finger grease onto the adhesive, because then it won't be as effective. Almost done. There we go. So that's all the sides done and ready for the digitizer to go on. And what I said I was going to do is I was going to put an extra safety measure. I'm going to put a bit of E8000 glue on it, just to make sure that the digitizer is firmly set to the chassis. And yeah, okay. So let's see if we can get the back peeled off, protective back peeled off the digitizer. Okay, well, I've got it started. Okay, and also let's just make sure there's no dust on the LCD. It's a little bit more difficult to get the dust off now because of the adhesive that's exposed. But we're just gonna lightly tap it out the way. All right. So now we're going to get some E8000 glue. I'm going to hold it away when I'm sticking it to, when I'm applying it, I'm holding it away because these, the ink on these tend to fall off as you're using it, and that's the last thing you're going to want on an LCD as well. So we're just going to go around the edge and do a fine continuous line of glue, no gaps. You just got to take your time with it. And also where the gaps are on the corners, just fill that in with the E8000. Now, because we're moving around a bit, I'm going to hold it here again, away from it. Now this would probably be just fine with just the adhesive on, just the sticky stuff. But I don't know, I like to be sure, I like to make sure it's a proper job. Okay. Okay, that's all on now. Usually with this, we leave it for a couple of minutes just to slightly set and go a little bit more tacky. Again, just lightly getting the last pieces of dust off the LCD. The brush. Just a slight dip over. There we go. And yeah, so that is setting. Beautiful. Let's remove the back of the digitizer, and let's get this quickly threaded through. So we have to go in at an angle and then straighten up, and then line up the glass perfectly. It's right to the edge. I'm just going round and pressing it into the chassis. Okay, so that is pressed into the chassis. It's okay for now. We are going to put some clamps on it to make sure it dries properly. But for now, that is in. Just going to double check all the way around it. Looking good to me. All right, so quickly, let's get this connector on. Now on the back of the connector for the digitizer, there is some adhesive, so I'm going to remove that. The cover, sorry. I'm going to remove that, put the connector in where it needs to go. Put that down and set that into place, like so. Okay, now while this is still open, I'm just going to connect up the battery and do a test while the glue's tacky, just to make sure we're good. So we're booting up Amazon. Let's see if the digitizer is now working. Digitizer appears to be working all right. Appears to be good. Let's do it from the side as well, just to make sure it's all working all the way along. And every way we can do it. There we go, we're all good. And let's lock that. Okay, that is all good, that is working. So now we can just literally pop the back on. And we do, when we pop the back on, we always do the motherboard side first because that was the last to come off. So we'll pop that on very carefully. Then we do the sides. And they just clip nicely into place. Okay. So let's just check the buttons are all working. Volume up, volume down, yes. Alright, so now we know that everything's all good and working. Everything looks fine, so let's take off the protective layer from the top and test the brightness. Everything looks good to me. So we can lock that now. Now we can get some clamps on it while the glue's drying. So a couple of these here. I use these pegs because they're silicone lined. It's looking good. On the corners, I like to use some of these just to keep the corners nice and strong and secure. The corners are some of the most important parts to make sure they're fixed. Okay. Maybe one in the middle here, using one of these strong ones. Again on the other side, one in the middle there. These edges will have one in the middle there as well. With just a clip on this one. There we go, that's back on. And one here as well. I'm not going to cover the camera because if we want to test it, then we don't want the camera to think it's night time. Okay, so now this is going to dry for around 4 hours, but I'm just going to leave it overnight to make sure it's set perfectly. And yeah, so let's just do one more test of this. It's got this restricted access thing on, but yeah, I mean, everything seems good. Explore, still this restricted access, but yeah, we're all good. Obviously I don't know the pin, but anyway, that's another repair done. Another happy customer. That's Amazon Kindle Fire 8 12th gen. Usually when I put these down to dry, I actually use a center point for these. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use something like this, something heavy, pop that in the middle, and there we go. That can dry overnight like that. So guys, that's another repair done, another happy customer. Thanks for tuning in for the Amazon Kindle Fire 8 12th gen Digitizer repair. And next repair we've got now is a Sony Vaio. It's switching off every couple of minutes from use. I suspect that it's either a fan issue or a thermal paste issue. It's probably getting too hot. Either that or it's got a major motherboard issue, so we'll soon see. Cheers guys, thank you very much.